What's up guys, Jake Lowry here, and today we're gonna do a lure comparison video. I bought two baits, one name brand and then one of the brand that people hate, and we're gonna put those two baits to the test to see if the hate comments are truly justified. But first, let's go over the hate comments and then I'll also unveil the brand that we're gonna be testing. The hate comments are in one video in particular where I opened up a mystery tackle box, and you tend to get this specific company's baits in the mystery tackle box. All right guys, let's go over the comment here. The baits we were looking at actually were googan baits, so I'm not going to reveal who this guy is, but we'll just take a look at what he was saying. Googan baits suck. Chinese garbage. That's why I stopped supporting MTB. Half of the box is worthless crap you will never use. And then they throw crappy googan baits that don't work and act like it's some $15 lure. I'd rather just buy what I want and know it works for less money. Overall, I asked him, of these baits that you hate, which bait has a googan counterpart that is significantly worse? And he said Rapala jerkbaits versus a googan bait jerkbait is the highest discrepancy. So what I did today is I bought two jerkbaits, one Rapala and one googan of the same exact color, and we're gonna compare those head to head to see if it really is worth the money. These are the two baits that we will be comparing today. I have the Googan Junior Scout, and I also have a Rapala Shadow Wrap. So both of these are in a very similar colorway, yellow and tone colored, and we're gonna take these out of the box and do an initial comparison. All right guys, there is the Googan bait. Overall, first impressions are very solid. This is a $7 lure when it's on sale. It has some weights in the belly of it, and then it also has some pretty sticky hooks. I've actually hooked my hand a couple times on these things. Overall, looks like a pretty solid bait for the value of a $7 jerkbait. Most jerkbaits are like $15. Here is the Rapala bait out of the box. Right away, it has 3 hooks. It's slightly larger than the other bait, but this bait is $11. So do the math, that's about 50% more expensive than the Googan bait for what you're getting for. So this thing better be 50% better than the Googan bait. So let's look at these baits side by side. As you can see, the Googan bait is slightly smaller than the Rapala. The Rapala has a little more chartreuse on it, but overall, these baits seem very, very similar. The bill shape on these baits is actually identical, and it looks like these baits will actually have some pretty similar action. The Googan Squad bait has slightly more girth than the Rapala bait, so we'll see how that impacts the action, but overall, I think both of these baits are pretty similar. So how I'm gonna compare these baits is I'm gonna tie on the Rapala, the more expensive one first, and we're gonna cast it out into the water and see if we catch any fish on it. We'll also take a look at the action, the castability, and just the overall experience while fishing that bait. And then we'll throw the Googan Squad bait on and see if we experience any difference at all. I will be fishing the Angeles River today, right below Sam Rayburn Reservoir, and I'll actually be going up to Sam Rayburn later in the day once it warms up. It's slightly warmer down here. The temperature is about 30 degrees. However, I'm pretty excited though because there's actually water coming out of this dam. It's one of the first times in a very long time that they're starting to let water out. What that typically does for the fishing here is it stirs up the fish, and all of those white bass, those stripers, and those smallmouth slash, I don't know if there are smallmouth slash spotted bass, start moving around and chasing bait, especially if this water is warmer than the water they've been dealing with. So should be pretty freaking good. Spot I'm gonna focus at today is right at this current seam, right? There's slow water off to my left here, and there's fast water off here. So that should be a great spot for these predatory fish to stop while they're fishing and hunting for those smaller bait fish. I'm gonna get rigged up and we'll start casting that Rapala bait and see if it actually works. All right, guys, I have the Rapala bait rigged up on my spinning rod. It's a Shimano Stella spinning rod with a Lew's reel. I'm down at the water. I'm gonna keep my cast pretty close to the bank. It looks like there's a ton of bait in the water, so that's a great sign to start off the day. But again, let's test out the action of this thing. So it's slowly sinking, it appears, and the jerking action is decent, right? So I just did a couple soft jerks. It's jerking about a foot to 2 feet side to side. Okay action for a jerkbait. Not the best I've ever seen, but also not the worst. Let's make sure my drag is set tight, and let's take our first cast right off into this current seam. Okay guys, again, action seems pretty decent, but this is actually kind of a dead bait. It's not really producing action like I thought it would. First impressions aren't great. I know I'm fishing it in current, so that's gonna have a little bit of impact to the action. Let's keep fishing this for a minute and see if we hook a fish on it. Again, guys, the biggest X factor in this kind of comparison is gonna be whether or not we catch fish. If we catch way more fish on one of the other baits, I think the thing is written in stone. If we end up catching the same amount of fish on both baits, I think that pretty much proves that the Googan Squad baits are worth the money, because you can't justify spending almost double of the lure costs on just one bait. All right, let's take a cast out into the current and see if that does anything for us. I feel like when you're fishing a jerkbait, it's pretty important to mix up your retrieves. So I'm gonna do that with both baits, and hopefully I can provide a little bit of an adequate comparison. Okay guys, something to note here on this Rapala bait is I just hooked it on the line, right? Those 3 hooks and this bait being pretty long, you're gonna experience that, especially if you put a lot of action into it. We'll keep that noted, and if that becomes a problem, we'll have to see if we can change that with the Googan bait. Okay, it cast pretty decently. I got about 30 yards on that cast. Nothing amazing. I've had better casting lures, but it's definitely not a bad casting lure. When you're looking for a jerkbait, you're looking for a bait that has an erratic action, right? And it moves side to side in a long distance. Also one that's generally either slowly buoyant or neutrally buoyant. That way it doesn't sink to the bottom. Overall, I would give this bait a pretty decent score in the realm of jerkbaits. Again, not the best jerkbait I've ever used, but also not the worst one. The Rapala is coming off, and I'm gonna put on the Googan Squad bait. All right guys, so I got the Googan Squad bait in the water. Right away, it looked either neutrally buoyant or slightly floating. When I cast it out into the water, it looks like it slightly floats. It's about 1 inch to 2 inches below the water, and see now it's starting to sink. Sometimes it's floating, so I would give this one neutrally buoyant. First impressions of the action, let's take a look at it and see. Okay guys, this thing has way more action than a Rapala bait. Maybe twice as much action as that Rapala bait. I just jerked it once and that thing freaking turned around. So first impressions are that this bait has a better action than the Rapala bait. Doesn't look like the $11 lure is going to be worth it. Also, it looks like I'm getting a little bit more depth. Let's test the castability on this thing and we'll see if that makes a difference. So I'm gonna cast it as far as I can. Okay guys, casted slightly longer than the Rapala 2. I think that's because it's a slightly smaller bait. It's more compact and easier to cast. We'll see how the fish feel about it, but for right now, I think I'm gonna give it to the Googan Squad jerkbait for action and, you know, selling to a fisherman. So what I'm gonna do is give this bait like 20 minutes at this spot, and if I don't catch anything, we're gonna move spot to a spot that's completely current right up at the dam. And if we don't have any success on that spot, we're gonna go over to the lake and see if there's any fish over there. Conditions wise, I think the fishing will get better towards the middle of the day. The more current or the more warmth and heat we get off that sun, the better the fishing's gonna be. Those fish will start to move around a little more. All right guys, that's a wrap on the first spot. Doesn't seem to be great for the fishing, but who knows. Let's throw the Googan Squad bait up by the dam and see if we can catch anything. I made it over to the dam. I'm about a 1/4 mile upriver from where I just was, which is down there. We're gonna keep throwing these jerk baits, but so far, I don't think these Googan baits are as bad as that kid was saying. $7 is a pretty good value. I think what's going to settle the debate is whether or not we can catch a fish on these baits. So stay tuned guys. Let's settle this debate and let's see if these Googan baits are really trash or if they are really good. So I made it over to the dam. I'm gonna throw along this concrete structure in this area and we're gonna see if we can hook any bass. Very, very high percentage spot. We'll see. Again, current changing could be bad. See how close I can get it to that corner. It's about as close as I'm gonna get it. Oh, I thought that was a fish, guys. Dang it, it was a rock. Oh my gosh. How did that even happen? Look at this freaking tangle, guys. For comparison's sake, I'm gonna take off the Googan Squad bait. I'm gonna put on the Rapala and we'll see if that makes any difference. So I have the Rapala on. I'm gonna throw it in the same exact spot. If I catch a fish here, I think that proves the Rapala is better. So we'll see. Would you look at that, guys? I caught a fish. Oh my gosh, look at that little shad. Not a great start to the day. Well, at least it defeats a skunk, right? Just throw that bad boy back in there. He's still alive, which is pretty surprising. Oh, no, he's not. Let's keep casting this thing around. I have a good feeling after hooking that shad. That's actually the second time that exact thing has happened to me in this same spot. I don't know if that's like a common occurrence or what. Okay, I'm lined up perfectly with this concrete wall. We'll see if we can cast and catch one right along this wall. Could be one of the best spots of the day. Okay, perfect cast, guys. Okay, guys, this is a big fish. Big fish. Okay, I don't know what I have on, guys. Whatever it is, this is big. What the heck? Come on, please be a bass. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. What the heck? Okay, this has to be a very questionable fish. I snagged a carp. What? I was literally casting in like the perfect bass spot and I thought I had a freaking giant fish on. Nope. Looks like I did some damage to this carp. Look at that, guys. On the freaking... on a jerkbait, I snagged a carp. Honestly, guys, I'm gonna need a little help on what kind of fish that is. But what the heck? Look at that. On the freaking jerkbait, the rapala. Slightly better than the googan bait. Well, I guess that's the only question we've answered so far. Rapala is better at snagging fish than the googan squad bait. I guess 3 treble hooks really pays off. All right, let's get this thing released. Look at his mouth. Look at the mouth on that thing. Let's get this bad boy released and we'll, I guess, keep fishing at the spot. Maybe I can catch another one. All right, ready. 1, 2, 3. Off he goes. I know for sure that the rapala works wonders snagging fish. At least it's something, I guess. That's definitely a first. I don't know what kind of fish that was, but 100% the first time I've caught it. All right, guys, the reason I'm leaving this spot so early is for one reason: the current. These tailwaters, right, when the current changes, it really messes the fishing up. When I got here this morning, the current was hauling ass, right? And then in about an hour went from hauling ass to absolutely zero current. One tip for you guys is if you're fishing a tailwater and something like that happens, probably a good idea to bail. Still caught a fish, a carp. It was kind of funny and fun, so I'll take it. But we're gonna go over to the other side of the dam and see if there's any bass hanging out around there. That is the goal of this video, is to catch bass. All right, guys, that is going to wrap up the video. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get it done with any bass today. We did snag a carp on the rapala, so I guess the only thing we really proved was that the rapala is better at snagging fish. Anyways, guys, I don't think those googan baits are trash for the price point. Again, that being a $7 bait versus an $11 bait, there really wasn't that big a difference. I'm gonna end up putting both of those baits in my box. So if you guys go to the store, I think it's a worthwhile investment to buy the rapala, but it's also a worthwhile investment to spend a little less money and get the googan bait. If you like the video, subscribe if you haven't, and I will catch you next time.